everybody, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Gerard Bissett, author of The Ultimate Survival Guide for College Success and forthcoming book, How to Become the Most Successful Millennial in Your Organization. For more information, please see the links in the description. Today, I am joined by Gavin Duffy. Many of you will know Gavin from Irish popular TV show Dragon's Den, but there's more to Gavin than that. He started his career in media at the tender age of 17. Since then, he has worked with Taoiseach and CEOs alike. Gavin is also a huge advocate of enterprise within Ireland. Gavin, how you doing?
Jared, how are you? And thanks for having me on the podcast.
Oh, Gavin, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So I suppose, Gavin, over the last couple of years, enterprise in Ireland has really progressed. We're now in the economic recovery period and things are moving again. So what do you think that means for entrepreneurs?
Well, I think what we're seeing a lot more of is people who are opting, and I know we use the word entrepreneurship and that sounds terribly grand, but people who during bad times, during the recession, considered the only option for them was self-employment, and they started a small business. They may have sadly been made redundant, had a bit of money, and decided to do something for themselves. And I think in response to that, we have to say that there has been a lot of initiatives from government and from banks and so on. You know, there's startup awards, there's startup initiatives. The local enterprise offices have been very, very active. And then, fortunately, Ireland, in my view, miraculously, after just 3 years of a bailout, is back performing normally as an economy. Now, people use the term recovery to describe that. That just means we're back able to pay our own bills. It doesn't mean, we still are burdened with a very large national debt, and we still have a lot of problems. But when people see us turning a corner like that, consumers start spending more, and so this is a very, very good time for those businesses who survived the recession. But as I always say, in business, it's not good enough to survive. You need to thrive. And now they are able to hopefully make their businesses scale a little bit more and start to generate real profits. And they need to do that to pay them back for the huge effort that's been made, the sacrifices, because when somebody sets up their own business, it's just a huge commitment 24/7. And Jared, as you know, life just tends to throw hurdles in the way all the time. Whatever business you're doing, it never works out the way you first dreamed it. You always find the market slightly right or left of where you were aiming. And when you're out there in the market, you realize, I need to tweak it this way, and so on, and adapt and reiterate, and so on. So, look, people need to get rewarded for the efforts they've made. But happily, as I say, consumers are beginning to spend again, and businesses are beginning to spend again for those in the B2B area. And that's very, that sort of makes it look like, as far as I'm concerned, I think the future of the next few years looks very good.
Well, a bright future is better than a dark one.
Yeah, and the future is bright. And I don't think we should be distracted by the very genuine concern I'm feeling for people who are almost traumatized by the election of Donald Trump in the United States and what he's going to do. And on this island, people very, very worried about Brexit. Which has huge implications for us. I'm not understating the implications of those, but ours is a very robust economy. So if Mr. Trump puts a lot of pressure on U.S. corporations to do more manufacturing in the United States, that may happen, and that's going to affect Asia. It's going to affect South America. But the American multinationals trading into the EU as it's currently constituted, and I don't see it changing anytime soon, even post British exit. They have to be based in the EU, otherwise they face prohibitive tariffs, and Ireland seems to be their location of choice, and that's not just to do with tax breaks. They can get just as generous a tax break in the Netherlands or in France. We just stated at 12.5%. The other state higher tax rates, but then they give you all sorts of rebates, etc. That put it at around the same figure. But there's a clustering effect, and the excellent work done by the IDA means that we are going to remain the gateway to the EU. Now, the EU may change a little bit, post-Brexit. We've huge issues as regards the border. We all know that. As somebody who's from a border county, and I don't mean to be dramatic or alarmist when I say this, there are still a group of people under the banner of dissident IRA out there who, if they see a hard border being reintroduced and Ireland divided again physically, as that would be, after it's going through a whole process of, a peace process and so on. Sadly, I fear those people may become active again, and I fear that in a big way, because they are very efficient terrorists. They don't drive trucks into people or swing machetes, which I know grabs headlines, but it's relatively small numbers of people. They have the armory and the capacity to target London and cause mayhem. And I'd be very frightened to see them, now that we're in an age of drones as well, how people with that track record, and we only saw somebody recently being arrested driving north with explosives and detonators, but that capability that was in the IRA to quote an infamous phrase of Gerry Adams, and I know I'm taking it slightly out of context, I haven't gone away, so this is very unsettling. And of course, I started out by saying, let's not get distracted by Brexit. And here I am myself surmising as to what could happen. So it's really important that we negotiate the very best result for the island of Ireland in Brexit. But we are still a very strong economy. We have, as I said, a lot of foreign direct investment. The Republic of Ireland has a population of just 4.5 to 4.75 million, and so on, and still we get all of that investment in the country. So, I think our future looks brighter than most people consider it to be, because they're looking back a little bit to the mother of all recessions we've just come through.
Oh, absolutely. And just earlier on there, you mentioned about that so much so in business is not just about surviving, it's about thriving. So what do you think is really some of the things that young entrepreneurs, old entrepreneurs, or whatever stage in the entrepreneurial journey a person may be at, what are some of the key things that will really help them thrive?
The first thing I would say to people, which I think is the most common mistake I see in businesses right around the country, and I see a lot of businesses around the country. I'm very involved in the initiatives that is the enterprise towns, and so I think I've probably done 100 of those, and I'm scheduled to do probably another 30 this spring, and I'll be doing more in the autumn. And that's where I meet local business communities and discuss with them the issues. And the common problem for all of them, and what I ask them to do is, first and foremost, make sure you are selling your product or service at a sustainable margin. That you're doing it at a decent profit and you're trying to maximize that margin. And the reason I say that is because we've come through the mother of all recessions. I used to refer to the recession as the time when people looked for a discount on the discount. Everybody became hackers, So, no matter what price you quoted, people nearly expected if they were to go out for a meal into a restaurant, that the restaurant should nearly pay them to, eat on their premises. And when you are in a recession, when you're trying trying to keep the door open, you are chasing turnover because you have to pay bills. So we got into the habit of selling our goods, services, etc., too cheaply, and we really do have to see, can we maximize the profit now. Now, look, if you're going to be putting prices up, as somebody who was dragged up in the pub trade, I'd never say put the price up on a pint of Guinness. Everybody will sort of give out about that, because that's a sort of standard bearer, a pint of beer, be it lager or stout or whatever. But look what people are paying now. Have you noticed women drinking gin and tonic? It comes in the size of it looks like an old watered crystal bowl you'd have on your table. It's full of ice. There's gin, and the gin can't have a normal name. It has to have some name that's almost unpronounceable, or sounds so far from gin, it's incredible. There seems to be a garden growing in it as well, and they're not happy for an ordinary tonic anymore. You have to have one of these new trendy tonics with it as well. So there they are. We call it premiumization. There they are, paying about 3 times the price of a gin and tonic. Now, for women, it's good weight training, because I'm sure the weight of that glass must be good for dealing with the dingo wings. But it's incredible. So people say to me, "Oh, Gavin, it's tough out there. I don't think we could put up our prices." Look, you have to look at what's in your catalogue as regards the sales or service or product you're providing, and just say, okay, how do we do it? How do we improve our customer service that people will appreciate more? What do they really want us to do? How do we make what they want, so much more convenient for them? Because that's what people are looking for. We've become spoiled by convenience. We've become spoiled by the fact that we can access so much information and check things out so well on our smartphone, etc. So we're in that age of super convenience, and that's what you got to do. But I'm saying, make sure you're trading at a profit, and you would be surprised the number of businesses around the country. Yeah, their doors are still open, but they're not really making that much money. And of course, their poor lives isn't helped, and their sleepless nights are added to, because the local authority puts up the commercial rates and so on, now that there is a bit of a recovery. So it's really important that people extract the correct price for their product or service. And then Gerard, something very much to your expertise as well, having successfully authored a very good book about how to be successful in college, and now I know you're in the throes of writing how to be the most successful millennial in your workplace, which I think will be very enlightening, because I think old fogies like me, tend to be very generalist in our criticism and assessment of millennials. The number of times I've heard people of my vintage, I'm 56 by the way, but saying, they feel entitled, etc. If I'm employing people, I want to employ millennials, because I don't think any other generation in our history has had to cope with the revolutionary changes that millennials have witnessed and taken in their stride. Because you're young, you're able to adapt and so on. Now, look, I don't think you're the greatest generation in history. I think other generations did amazing things. I think those young, mostly men, as it was back at the start of the last century, who sort of went off for a great cause of defending little countries in the first Great Wars, was called, there was nothing great about it, of course, it was disastrous. The Second World War, so luckily we're in peaceful times, which is very important, because it's young people who pay the biggest price and burden for countries at war. But certainly millennials have coped with so much. So they're people that I've a great regard for. And the one thing I say to people in their business, and I say to individuals as I go around the country speaking at various events, is please don't describe yourself by a job title. Or let's say you're just running. I'll come back to the job title presently, but let's say you're running a coffee shop or something like that, and they'll tend to sort of market on Facebook or in the local newspaper, we're a great coffee shop, fine, but like when I think coffee, I've so many choices on every street, right? But like if you sort of target something like, wait till you try our lemon drizzle cake with our coffee. Now, at the moment, because we're going into recordings of Dragon's Den, I'm like an Elwyn going off to a wedding. I'm trying to drop a dress size and so on. I wouldn't be tempted to go for the lemon drizzle cake at the moment, but it goes into my head better than just saying a coffee shop. Do you get my point, Gerard? Right?
Yes.
Now, let's come back to the individual. The number of people who I would meet would say, I'm an accountant, right? And, that, so what? But if somebody comes up to me and says, hi, Gavin, I think I can really save you an awful lot of money on your taxes this year.
That catches your attention. Mm-hmm.
So give me the all-important job title.
It's not really about your job title, though, is it?
Let me come at this thing about sort of, job title another way, because this happened to me a couple of summers ago. I was visiting a local parish fete type event close to where I live. That type of charity event where women who bake cakes sell them because their own family has got fed up eating them. But they're doing it for a good cause and they're well intentioned. So I'm there, and you're making your few purchases to support the local cause as it was. And this chap just approaches me and he says, how are you, Gavin? And he says, here, Gavin. He says, don't you run 2 boilers over there in that house of yours, gas and oil? Huh? And Gavin, it's a pressured system. Gosh, when the winter comes, if you got a burst pipe, Gavin, not only would your ceilings and carpets be, you could be drowned. Now, and he just came up and he says this to me, but, let's be honest, he had my attention. He's either broken into my house or he's having an affair with my wife, but like, he knows intimate knowledge of my central heating system, probably more than I do, and so on. And then he says to me, he says, now look, Gavin, I just live 4 miles away from you. If in the middle of the night, come the winter, 3 o'clock, 4 a.m., you need to get somebody to get that sorted because the water will be pumping out because it's under pressure, Gavin. You just give me a call. I will be there, right? So now, you'd imagine I'm going to say I had a burst pipe and you turned on. No, that didn't happen at all, right? But he gave me the car. But because he had said it in such a memorable, impactful way, he didn't say, hello, I'm a plumber. He had told me a problem I could have and explained to me that he was the ultimate solution for that problem, right? So I went home and I went into the kitchen, and I suppose like most people's kitchen, family kitchens, we have a notice board, a type of cork board, and in the past it used to have all the timetables of the kids' various activities, their sports things, and of course then they get older. Now it's full of takeaway menus, right? And I removed 1 or 2 of the Chinese ones because there was about 7 of those, and I found a little space and I put his card on the cork board, right? Now, I don't need a plumber because I have a brilliant plumber who's been looking after me for years. Joe's, they're based in Bolton Glass in Wicklow, and they look after a lot of my commercial properties and everything else. And the other great thing about Joe's is they forget to send invoices. So you get about, you get brilliant work and you get about a year's credit as well, right? So I'm not in the business of looking for a new plumber, right? But anyway, Orla, my darling wife at home, starts saying, oh, Blonde, that's my mother-in-law, needs her boiler serviced. Now, take it from me, that is far too small a job for Joe. So Bolton Glass, I would have phoned them and I'm sure they would have obliged, etc. But I I remember, because, Gerard, you're not married yet, but wives tend to repeat these requests ad nauseum. So I sort of said, solve it now, Gavin, solve it now. So I went to the notice board and I said, I'm the very man, and I handed Orla the card. He went and serviced Blonnett's boiler, my mother-in-law. And only a few weeks back, I was at my father-in-law's anniversary mass, and Blonnet tells me that that plumber has now about 20 customers in Kilmacud in Dublin. Now, that means he must have been a good plumber. He must have turned up in time. He must have cleaned up after him. He must have been good value. But he must have also been a very good salesperson, because he has sold a number of those elderly ladies. He has sold them solar panels for the roofs. Now, I know there's a return on solar panels, but I don't think these ladies will live long enough to get that, to see that return, right? But do you see the point I'm making? That's a compelling proposition. He didn't come up and say, I'm a plumber. He didn't give a job title. He told me the service he provided and made it relevant to me. Therefore, I remembered it. Therefore, when I wanted a service, I went to him. And I think people get distracted by all of the social media platforms we have available to these days for getting their messages out. But when you're meeting people, because people buy people, it's most important that you connect with them in that way. So I'm always saying to people, and I'd be saying to millennials, sorry, I wouldn't be presumptuous enough to suggest something for your book, but it's very important, Gerard, that people are very, very clear that they're distinguishing themselves from everybody else. That's how you win business.
And I think that's such an important point in a world where everything is moving towards social media. You can never actually beat that face-to-face interaction.
Yeah. Yes, I know we're in a high-tech world, but my advice is be high-touch. I use the tech as well. It just confounds me that so many people follow me on Twitter, the only thing I do on Twitter is try and promote local businesses around the country, and so on. So I'm just retweeting and plugging for people, and it is fantastic to have such a social media platform. But I often think small businesses get fixated by it as well. Facebook is fantastic, but you can't deposit likes in a bank on a Monday morning. You have to have been out, met people and sold to them at a profit. That's what business is. So always be mindful of that.
I've seen great people out there on social media, and they have 100,000 people following them, and they get thousands and thousands of likes, but they're broke, stone broke.
Yeah. Well, I think the lovely thing, sort of that I've experienced certainly about social media for myself is people really do appreciate that, which is strange for me because I'm always plugging my businesses. But I've decided on social media, no, I'm not doing that. I won't plug my own businesses. I'll just do whatever I can to give a steer, advice, and help to people, particularly those in the startup space. And I have to say, the startup community by nature are the most positive people on the planet. So you'll often hear it said about general social media, it can be very negative and trolling and all of that. I find, social media and particularly the experience of Dragon's Den, it's all very, very positive, and people are genuinely very, very nice and very appreciative of any little help or support they get as regards their business.
So, just to finish up really quickly, and let's assume that someone listened to this podcast and they get inspired to go on Dragon's Den. What would be your 5 top tips for a successful pitch in the Den?
All right, you want 5. Okay. The first thing is practice in a large space for your pitch. Now, I know that sounds unusual, but a lot of people watch Dragon's Den and can't get over that people seem to not be able to answer what would be simple, straightforward, and expected questions like, what's your projected turnover for next year? What was your turnover last year? Can I just say the Den is a very intimidating space, but it's actually very large. and the nearest dragon, on television it looks like the dragons are just sitting in front of you, but there's actually a gap of 9 meters between where you stand and the dragons, and that's the guts of 30 feet or more, and therefore you feel you have to, and that sort of catches people out. So practice in a bigger space rather than in your living room or in your accountant's office. To go on Dragon's Den or not, if your idea, product, service is going to benefit from a national TV launch, if it's consumer facing particularly, then I don't think there's a better platform ever available to anybody than Dragon's Den. It really is worth seriously considering. The third thing I'd say is make sure that you demonstrate to the dragons that you are able to accept criticism. So, it's not that I'm giving people who are pitching a tough time, but I always ask them one or two tough questions about their business model, etc. Say, do you not think it'd be better to do this route to market rather than that one? If I get the sense that the promoter of the business is too set in their ways, I'm looking to exit as soon as possible, because you can only work successfully with a promoter who is willing to adapt, because the circumstances in the business world keep changing. So, often people come in and they just love their product and their idea too much, and they're far too set in their ways, And I'd also say something that rarely happens in the den, sadly, is please, make sure you state what you perceive to be the exit for the investor. So if I'm going to put 50, 100, 150,000 in your business, I need you to show to me that you see part of your job is me getting a return on that, as well as you getting a return on the rest of your equity that you're left with. And the final tip is, always negotiate the percentage that the dragon seeks, is what I would suggest, And now sort of we've seen it quite a bit both on the RTE program and the BBC program, where, you'll see people say, well, look, if I hit certain targets, would I be able to get back some of the equity or buy it back, or can there be some deal? And you end up getting a better deal that way, and the investor has more comfort because now you're incentivized to hit those targets. And above all, I know this is easier said than done. Enjoy it. See it as a great opportunity to promote your business.
Well, Gavin, thanks for being on the podcast today. It was very insightful. I hope everybody who is listening got some great tips out there for their business, and if they want to go on Dragon's Den, that's straight from the dragon. That's how you succeed in the den. Thanks, everybody.